Under a starry night, the avid followers of Ash Heath keep chanting his name in unison. As they keep worshipping the young man sitting on his throne, they didn't notice that behind his cold and stern expression, he was already panicking inside. Just a few hours ago, he was pulling an all-nighter at his mobile game company. Trying to keep his cool, he wonders where he is since the people aren't speaking Chinese, but he can somehow understand them. After trying to make sense out of what's happening, the young man concluded that he has transmigrated. He tries to feel his new body and is amazed that he can move it like it is a perfect fit. He also realizes that he has the same first name as the body he now occupies and wonders if it is the reason why he transmigrated. However, there's just one problem. He doesn't remember any memories Ash has. From his observation, he has to be someone holy, and the people revere him. He must not slip up and feels nervous because he has no idea what to do next. He then looks at the followers of Ash Heath as if waiting for him to say something. He tells himself that the followers won't listen to him even if he tries to explain that he is a victim too and that they will likely punish him. Just then, the followers continue their incantation, calling for the great Ash Heath. Different hues of light gather around Ash as his cult continues to call on his sacred name that will save their world. Suddenly, he kneels down and receives blessings from different beings. The Lord of Billion Lights and ruler of battle, courage, and honor grants him unparalleled strength. The sovereign of snow, rain, and destiny, and the ruler of wisdom and destiny, grants him the angel of wisdom. Meanwhile, the ruler of equality and sharing grants him the angel of everlasting health. Lastly, the ruler of fantasy, love, and joy grants him unequaled charm. The endless power he receives starts to surge through him. He realizes that it isn't bad after all that he was transmigrated to another world as a hero. For him, it is starting to be a blessing as he actually became a hero chosen by 4 gods and worshipped by countless followers. Soon, he will save the world from monsters and marry a beautiful princess. His daydream is cut short when his supporters warn him that the Mad Hunters have already found their lair, and that everything now depends on him for their survival. He then smirks upon hearing the name of their enemies clearly. They are the villains, as their name suggests. He unsheathes his sword and tells his followers to lead the way so he can finish the enemies. Suddenly, a group of beautiful knights invades the place, challenging Ash to a duel. Ash feels the surge of power within him, gifted by the blessings of the gods. He tries different moves and powers he got from the divine beings, and thinks of the name of the move but holds himself back as he wants to keep it low-key. He swings his sword and is amazed by the space-slicing sword aura. However, the hunters retaliate in a much more powerful way, causing most of Ash's followers to get fatally injured. Ash is beyond stunned as he is sent flying by the hunters' attack, realizing that he is nothing compared to his enemies despite the blessings from the 4 gods. Taken aback by what just happened, Ash realizes that he acted recklessly when he is just a regular guy, reincarnated from another world and knows nothing about the current one. For a short time, he forgot that he was once a corporate slave, beaten down by society and acted rashly. The hunter identifies himself as Gerald, a member of the Crime Hunting Bureau. He states Ash's multiple crimes, kidnappings, murders, robberies, and the 4 Pillars cult case. The man tells him that if he has complaints, he can visit the Kaimon branch front desk and file a formal complaint to the mayor's office. The hunter looks down at him with a mocking smile, telling Ash that he shouldn't have fought a tri-wing hunter like him because he is incomparable against his 4 double-winged chaos spirits. He then puts handcuffs on Ash and declares that he is now under arrest as the leader of the 4 Pillars cult. That day, he made a major contribution to the city's safety because Ash was finally put behind bars. Later, at the Crime Hunting Bureau, Ash is being interviewed by a staff member. He answers the basic questions like his name and gender but claims that he lost most of his memories, so he can't answer their questions. Another hunter named Amy is pissed off that Ash is treating them like fools since he is evading the questions. Another hunter chimes in that he has a level 1 interrogation license and that he can make Ash confess no matter what. Just then, Gerald cuts in and tells him that he should back down and burn his license. He reminds them that they should be careful around Ash because they can't treat him badly according to the Human Rights Act, and since the Parliament is watching them closely. Triggered, Amy frantically asks for a memory mage so they can extract their captive's memories. However, Gerald reveals that the memory mage won't come even though memory evidence is crucial for them in building the case. He explains that Ash has seen the 4 Pillars, and this means that he can't have his memories extracted since no cultist from their group has ever been affected by the extraction. He adds that memory corruption is the 4 Pillars' specialty, remembering that 134 years ago, a memory mage extracted a cultist's memories and unknowingly got converted into a believer of the 4 Pillars, making the cult grow their number and rise from the ashes. Furious, Amy asks how they should move on from the case since they can't get any testimonies or extract memories. Gerald assures her that there is a slow death sentence more suited to evil like Ash, and that their interrogation is just for show, reminding her about the public trial with the entire city, as the jury on the 15th at 8 p.m. Frustrated, Amy storms out of the room, declaring that she's done watching the interrogation. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Ash is given 15 minutes every now and then to take a break because of the Human Rights Act. Gerald then quietly observes Ash and feels like he is not lying and seems to really be an amnesiac man based on how he panics, gets confused, and fears. He contemplates that according to the Human Rights Act, if someone has symptoms of losing their memories, they can be exempt from criminal punishment, and if a memory extraction proves Ash did lose his memory, he can be released as innocent. However, in the end, they can't use a memory mage, and the only option left is to have the public judge Ash. Ash ponders what could have happened if he was reincarnated as a hero instead of a cult leader who got mobbed immediately by a whole pack of heroes upon his arrival in a new world. It was such a shame that he was transmigrated when the hunters were closing in on the evil cult group that he is the leader of. He remembers the evidence presented to him while he was being interrogated, and he almost puked upon seeing them, confirming that the body of the cult leader he is in is really the vicious one. He then wonders how they will execute him, still grateful that he experienced good treatment while being interrogated, and hopes that they have abolished the death penalty. Suddenly, he feels his neck getting hot all of a sudden, and a system message pops up saying that he is invited as a special guest on Blood Moon Judgment. Albeit confused, he begins to type his reply, but the system informs him that he is in arrest and interrogation status, so messaging for him has been disabled. He realizes that he can control the messaging system using his mind, and that it looks like a version of a smartphone. However, all the features are now locked, and there is no usable app. As he is about to close it, he discovers that there is one usable app called Aurora's Sorcerer Manual. He is surprised to see the name as it is the mobile game that his company made way back in his original world. He remembers leading the team for the game's planning and operations. He then downloaded the demo and worked through the night, and the next thing he knew, he was transmigrated. Since this could be a key, he moves the app to his home screen and thinks of it as his transmigration cheat. He then launches the app and immediately gets bombarded by many warning signs. Since there is no network, he almost gives up but then receives a message that the search system is working normally. Upon checking, the things that only work are the gacha and top-up systems. He then tries the two active buttons and is directed to a top-up screen. However, he doesn't have any money with him, so he can't do anything about the game. He tries once more, but it still asks for money, making him remember that his company made the game. As he gives up, the check-in system gets restored, and he successfully checks in. He then gets one source crystal, which is used to perform a 10x operator search and guarantees at least one operator per use. Desperate, he avails of the operator, wanting to avoid the blood judgment. He closes his eyes shut, hoping that he will get a strong operator. Upon seeing the skills that the character Berserker Sword Maiden gets, Ash lets out a frustrated groan, as even the starting character needs slow leveling to be usable. He then sees another operator and checks it, surprised to see that the character flashed before him is himself. He recognizes that the game seems to reference him and that he can share experience points with other operators. With this, he figures out that if he can train the Berserker Sword Maiden, he can get stronger as she gets stronger, and this might be his chance to escape the prison. He then checks the inventory of his items and deems that he got the perfect training items for his operator. He then discovers that the operator's mood affects the training gains, so the better the mood of the character, the more powerful it can be. He has to take care of the girl's mood and put a balance in her life despite the fact that he is about to be executed. After improving the girl's mood, he then registers the Berserker Sword Maiden into the Sorcerer Manual. As he confirms, the training for the Berserker Sword Maiden inside the game starts. Ash tries to patiently wait for it, but the tiredness from the day's events consumes him. Meanwhile, in another place 3 hours behind Ash's time zone, a young girl who had gone to bed early for her skincare routine suddenly finds herself inside a dream. She stands in front of a man who has a sword impaled in his chest. Sonia tries to drink water in a nearby lake and discovers that it's sweet, so she must be dreaming. She wonders why a corpse is in her dream and is curious about who he is. She then grabs the sword impaled in him, thinking how it perfectly suits her, like it was forged just for her. Just then, the corpse moves and slowly rises from his slumber, freaking out Sonia. He introduces himself as the final observer and assures her that he is not an enemy, so she doesn't have to panic. However, after a beat, an evil smirk slowly creeps onto his face, and he declares that he will kill her. In the next 72 hours, she can only leave the dream if she manages to defeat him. Threatened, Sonia braces for the attack as the final observer unsheaths his sword and attacks her in a swift move, telling her afterward that she has 10 seconds to rest. Sonia is stunned, unsure if she was attacked just now since there is no wound on her body, but the pain felt real. Seeing her confusion, the final observer explains that they share the same dream and that her 10 seconds are up. He then slashes her again and declares that she has another 10 seconds to rest. With her sword out of reach, she decides to dive into the lake, thinking that the observer can't reach her. Holding her breath underwater, she starts to swim away from her enemy, who thinks her action of running away is shameful and useless. She starts struggling to breathe and manages to surface above the water to breathe for a second. However, the observer still manages to slice her off by throwing his sword and attacking her underwater. She feels her jaw, making sure that it's still there, while the observer mocks her for not learning her lesson when she died in his hands so many times. Seeing his smug face, Sonia starts to get frustrated, but to his surprise, she kneels in front of him and begs him to spare her. Her eyes brim with tears as she begs him to stop torturing her, promising that she will be obedient. The observer smirks, telling her that he will only be satisfied if she manages to defeat him. Triggered, she marches toward him and demands to know why he is so invested in killing her when she didn't even do him wrong. She tries to reason that there are far more evil people he can take revenge on. She insists that she is just a fragile girl who knows nothing. However, the observer tells her that she had wronged him before and proceeds to attack her again. While trying to rest, Sonia asks if staying in the dream for 72 hours would eventually make her escape her situation. The observer confirms this, but to death, 72 hours is eternity, and he asks her if she can endure dying over and over. He also questions whether she can trust anything he says when he keeps on killing her. More than that, even if she survives the night, there's no guarantee that she can survive the night after. He then grabs his sword again and tells her that after she has tasted death, she shouldn't be hoping for miracles. In one swift move, the observer swings his sword in her direction, but in a surprising twist, Sonia is able to neutralize the attack with her own sword. Sonia continues to be defeated multiple times. For her next battle, she thinks about the great swordsmasters who pushed swordsmanship to the extreme, so much so that even their casual swings struck fear in everyone. She tells herself that the observer is nothing like those swordsmasters, which means she still has a chance against him. The cut wound she inflicted on the observer magically healed itself. Sonia smiles, seeing this as proof that the dream is leaving her no room for an advantage. She starts the battle by charging in. As she predicted, the observer opens with his usual starting strike, so she is able to block it. They get into a clash of multiple slashes, all while Sonia counts to 5. The moment she reaches 5, she makes a strong slice that the observer is still able to evade. Her wide stance leaves an opening for the observer to attack her. Sonia smiles as she sees this coming and evades it with a sidestep. While the observer is mid-swing, Sonia sees an opening to slice him. She declares that she has learned his moves after dying so many times by his hand. She makes her strike, which is so powerful that it pushes the observer back against a wall. The huge cut the observer receives then heals instantly. Sonia asks if hitting him counts as his defeat. The observer answers that it does and congratulates her. She sighs in relief, only for the observer to tell her that she still needs to defeat him while he holds 2 swords. He grabs another sword and makes a 2-sword fighting stance. He declares this is the beginning of the second half and warns her that there won't be any 10-minute rest periods this time. Sonia then hears someone calling her name and wakes up from her dream, looking exhausted. Her roommate, Ingrid, tells her that it is already 7 a.m. and that she needs to get ready for general education class. Sonia tells her she thinks she had a nightmare. Ingrid does not see this as a big deal and leaves for class. Sonia goes through her morning routine and goes to class. She is one of many students in the lecture hall, facing the professor on stage. As she writes down her notes, she thinks about her experience with the observer and whether it was all really just a dream. She remembers how, when she finally defeated the observer, he warned her that her life was just about to begin. Sonia promises not to let the observer control her life. Meanwhile, Ash has just woken up in his luxury suite deep within Kamon City's shattered lake prison. He is confused as to why he feels so tired and beaten down despite a full night's sleep. He checks his holo screen, and a notification from the Sorcerer Manual game informs him that his bond with the Berserker Sword Maiden has deepened. He is surprised that arranging training strengthens bonds. He is glad that he has already pre-planned her activities and wants his Sword Maiden to keep grinding. Meanwhile, Sonia feels an aching pain in her chest. Despite this, she stands up to answer the professor's question with a cheerful smile. The students are impressed that she answered the tough question correctly, especially one boy who whispers about her beauty and intellect. Sonia introduces herself to the manga readers and tells them about her humble origins, coming from a small village. She remembers completing a basic education course, which led to her admission to Swordflower University. She is proud to say that she was the only person from her hometown to be admitted to the university in the last 20 years. On the day she first graced the school grounds, people whispered about her appearance as a country bumpkin as she passed by. After a month, she learned to do makeup and coordinate her clothing while also perfecting a city accent, transforming into the standout student she is today. Thanks to her good looks, she gained several part-time jobs and became popular. She joined many school activities and hosted multiple events, becoming a school celebrity. As she walks the campus grounds, she recalls her first step into the university and how naive she looked back then. She goes outside the campus gate to look for someone. She finds her mother, who calls her Linda. Sonia tells her to use her new name. The daughter is excited to show her mother around the city and takes her on a train ride. As they ride, Sonia shows her mother the same view of clean streets, towering skyscrapers, and sleek luxury cars she saw when she first arrived. She remembers how overwhelmed she was to see well-mannered people and LED billboards that played advertisements day and night. Now she observes how happy her mother looks seeing the city view. Sonia remembers how her mother raised her alone after her drunken and violent father died. She remembers her mother doing all the manual labor on their farm so that Sonia had all the time in the world to study. Sonia feels lucky, as other kids like her worked in factories and spent their entire lives in that small town. As she shows her mother more of the city, she is determined to let her enjoy it as much as possible. Sonia brings her to a food truck, then to a clothing store where she offers to buy her mom a dress. She then showed her mom a gourmet restaurant, but her mom did not want to eat there. Later, they sit on a bench in the park, eating snacks beside a fountain. Later on, Sonia accompanies her mother to the train station for her journey back to their small town. Before she leaves, Sonia asks her to stay one more night. Her mother refuses, saying she is not very comfortable in the city. Sonia promises to bring her to the city again someday and give her a life of luxury. Her mom holds her hand and tells her she believes in her and that she can do it. She advises her daughter to remember that no matter what happens, she can always visit home, where a warm meal is always waiting for her. She tells Sonia that she thinks the city is too complicated and that it might be better to go home and live a quiet life. She gives her daughter a bag of money, telling her that she doesn't spend any money back home anyway. As the mother boards the train, she assures her daughter that she is doing fine. Sonia checks the contents of the bag and sees that there is also candy inside. Just as she puts the money in her side bag, a man approaches her from behind. The man pulls out a small razor and uses it to cut a hole in the bag. Sonia chops the man's hand, making him drop the razor. Without even looking at him, Sonia leaves the train station. She goes to the middle of the busy streets to admire the lights and bustle of the city. She tells herself that the complexity of the city is where she belongs. It's late at night, and Sonia is trying to convince the guard at her university to let her in despite it already being after curfew. After attempting to appeal to his sympathy, she is finally let in. As she walks across the campus, she smiles, knowing her beauty was the weapon that got her inside. She reflects on how beauty is power in their world and believes hers is a primary reason she has been able to squeeze into high society. Walking up the stairs to her dorm, she silently thanks her mother for the genes that helped her fit in. As she nears her dorm room, she hears one of her roommates talking about how late Sonia is, guessing that she is probably flirting with some rich guy. Sonia puts her ear to the door to better hear her hateful roommate, who continues to speak badly about her. The girl inside then mentions seeing Sonia with her mother outside the campus, speculating that her mother must be ashamed of her daughter. This provokes Sonia's anger, and she gets ready to turn the knob and confront them. Just as she is about to do so, she hears a loud clang that silences the talking girl. Ingrid then opens the door, says good evening to Sonia, and leaves. Sonia looks inside and sees a fresh punch mark on the punching bag next to the door. She realizes Ingrid punched it to shut up the gossips. The two people left in the room are her roommate, Lois, and Lois's little lapdog, Adele. Sonia explains that Lois is the daughter of a local merchant who always makes passive-aggressive insults about Sonia's background. Sonia recalls how she always gets more attention from guys than Lois, no matter how much Lois acts like she is the more beautiful of the two. When Sonia landed the host role for a major event, Lois's hatred for her only grew. After that, Lois constantly organized events for the water magic majors and took classmates to high-end restaurants while deliberately leaving Sonia out. Due to these social maneuvers, more guys eventually pursued Lois. Lois ended up liking a senior who, in turn, tried to pursue her. Sonia then intentionally bumped into the guy, which led to him pursuing her instead. She ultimately rejected the senior, knowing that Lois's pride would never allow her to pursue a guy that even a country bumpkin wouldn't date. In Sonia's mind, she helped Lois dodge a bullet by steering her away from a boring guy. Sonia harbors ambitions of finding a man to provide a shortcut into high society. To achieve this, she wants to become a water sorceress because her research showed that water sorcerers are the most likely to end up as noble wives. She plans to use Swordflower University's reputation for producing elite sword, wind, and water sorcerers to graduate as a top-tier water sorcerer. She imagines meeting a nobleman who will introduce her to his mother. She has decided to avoid being a sword sorcerer, believing a strong and muscular physique is a disadvantage for women in her pursuit. She envisions a future where she summons her first water spirit by next year and fully awakens her silver wings before graduation to become a winged sorcerer. Then she will find her way into a campus event at Truth University to reel in a young nobleman. She explains that Truth University is the #1 university in Galaxis, where everyone is rich and powerful, making it the perfect place to find a potential boyfriend. As she contemplates her ambitions, she studies from her book while removing her makeup. She thinks about how much time and money maintaining her appearance requires and wholeheartedly believes she will land a husband from high society and bring her mom into a noble woman's life. She is then startled by a voice telling her to focus on practicing with a sword. She turns around to see where the voice came from and sees the observer. He encourages her to speak to him using only her mind's voice. Sonia looks around and sees that Lois and Adele can't see the observer, despite the man standing right next to them. The observer tells Sonia that he is not her enemy. He shows her a bottle of green fluid, which he says she needs to drink. Sonia tells him that there is no way she will drink it. The observer then pours the fluid on the ground, but instead of spilling, it magically ends up in Sonia's throat. The drink somehow moves her body to stand up. The observer shows her a wooden sword and tells her she needs to practice with it. She tells him over and over with determined eyes that she will not do it. However, her body suddenly dresses itself. She grabs her wooden sword and leaves the room. As she walks through the hallway outside, Sonia can hear Lois complaining about how she must be trying to hit on some senior who majors in sword sorcery. Sonia ends up at the sword training hall, where many trainees are practicing their swordplay on armored dummies. This includes Ingrid, who is already sweating. Ingrid is so proud of her progress that she thinks she will be able to hit the 10th ring by next month and summon a sword spirit. She controls herself from being cocky and reminds herself that she needs to grind to get better. Sonia enters the room, making every sword practitioner turn to look at her. As she walks past them, they wonder why she is at the training grounds. Sonia then starts hitting one of the dummies with her wooden sword. Ingrid sees from her technique that she is still unsteady and sluggish. Ingrid reflects that female sword sorcerers need calloused hands and muscular bodies to get stronger and wonders if Sonia is ready for that. She then wonders if Sonia is doing this to get a boy and realizes that her target must be Felix, the sword magic apprentice, who is watching her train right now. Ingrid notes that Felix is the son of the Voslada family, one of the pillars of the Stellaris Council and top-tier nobility. She recalls that his father, Duke Voslada, controls the most advanced steelworks in Stellaris, making him one of the most significant and powerful figures in the nation. Ingrid worries that Sonia is pursuing a player. Regardless, she is happy to get another sword-loving buddy. She continues to watch Sonia practice with the magic dummy and realizes that she has already hit the edge of the first ring of the center target after just a few minutes. Looking closely, Ingrid sees that while Sonia's moves are still rough and tiring, she is strictly following the sword magic manual. She worries that if Sonia continues, she will be exhausted in a few minutes. She starts counting Sonia's hits to help her keep track. After hundreds, Ingrid has lost count and is now laser-focused on her friend's practice. After a while, the entire training hall is looking at her in awe. The crowd estimates that it must have been 90 minutes since she started, and that she has already passed 2,400 hits. Felix's girlfriend, Cecilia, enters the room, thinking everyone must be gathered around her boyfriend because he is doing something impressive. She is surprised to see that Felix is one of the people staring at Sonia. She can tell from his face that he can't take his eyes off her. Cecilia looks at Sonia and assumes she has put on makeup to attract boys. She worries that Sonia is targeting Felix with her sword act and plans to drag her boyfriend away quickly. Cecilia asks why everyone is looking at Sonia. Felix informs her that Sonia came in an hour and a half ago as a newbie with no proper sword stance, but now she can cut through 9 rings of a target with a single sword strike. Cecilia asks if she must have just been pretending to be a beginner. Felix answers that he thought the same thing and watched her training to see when she would hit a bottleneck. He admits that after an hour and a half of watching her, his initial skepticism has completely turned into admiration. Cecilia feels threatened that a girl can capture Felix's attention so easily. She then realizes that training for an hour and a half straight is impossible. She notes that even Felix can only train for 3 hours with breaks in between. Cecilia looks around and sees all the men, who are usually only obsessed with training, stopping to cheer Sonia on as she continues striking the training dummy. Cecilia lets go of Felix's arm, believing she has just suffered a total defeat to Sonia in the game of capturing Felix's interest. Finally, Sonia hits the 10th ring on the target. Everyone is on the edge of their seats watching her. With the 10th ring hit, Sonia's dummy shatters. The crowd goes wild with cheers. Now, Sonia rests. She realizes that she is now a lot closer to summoning a sword spirit and becoming a winged sorcerer. She can't believe that her dream of a worry-free life is just around the corner. Ingrid brings her some water. Suddenly, Sonia feels a liquid rush down her throat. She looks around and sees Felix. Sonia can see the observer behind Felix. He has just poured a bottle of drink on the floor, just like before. The observer tells her that she can't rest yet and that she needs to beat Felix first. The observer tells Sonia that he just wants to set up a fight between her and the strongest person in the room. He is even happy to see that the strongest person just so happens to be a noble, since he loves it when nobles get beaten to a pulp. Sonia asks to switch to a different person since she does not want to get involved with Felix. She explains that she knows Felix is a playboy at Swordflower University. She remembers always seeing him with a luxury car and changing girlfriends every 3 days. In her notes, she wrote that Felix has a habit of collecting women. She also finds it suspicious that the son of the Duke of Voslada ended up at Swordflower University instead of Truth University, which implies he must have been involved in some kind of political mess. She tells the observer that she believes Felix is a villain. Unfortunately for her, the observer thinks it is perfect for her to face someone like him. He advises her to smash the sword prodigy and kick the Stellaris noble to the curb. Despite Sonia telling him that she will never do something like that, she still points her wooden sword at Felix and challenges him to a duel. The crowd goes wild. Cecilia is internally angry, believing that Sonia is doing this to tie herself to Felix. At the same time, Sonia is internally repeating that she will not face Felix. Externally, her body is still pointing her sword at him. Ingrid reminds Sonia that she is still tired after 2 hours of training and proposes they battle tomorrow instead. Felix insists they need to fight now. He reasons that she is the most talented person he has ever seen and only the second to make him feel fear. He believes that if he waits until tomorrow, he will no longer have the courage to draw his sword against her. Felix pulls out his sword and points it at Sonia, declaring he will defeat her tonight, no matter what. Everyone can see that Felix is using the wave sword fighting stance. Sonia recalls that the Voslada family is famous for their 4 secret sword stances that can summon spirits, and the wave stance is one of them. Sonia assumes an ordinary sword stance, ready to fight. She complains to the observer that there is no point in winning against Felix if he is just controlling her body anyway. She bargains, asking for control of her body back so she can find someone else to fight. The observer reveals that he was never in control of her body to begin with, shocking her. He elaborates that she trained with her sword on her own because last night in her dream, she defeated him and realized her talent for the sword. He analyzes that she came to the training hall to push herself to her limit, so that Ingrid and the others could see she has a talent she can be proud of, aside from her looks. Sonia charges at Felix. As they exchange blows, the observer reminds Sonia that she challenged the boy on her own because she hated him from the beginning for being the school's hot topic. Felix can tell from his opponent's movements that she is strong, but he continues his offensive, confident that Sonia is still no match for his wave sword style. His multiple strikes force Sonia back. As this happens, the observer reminds her that no matter how talented she is, Felix is still unbeatable because of his wave stance. He hypes her up by emphasizing that there are people born with everything who will outshine her in every way. This drives her to keep up with Felix's movements, making him wonder where she is getting her stamina. Felix decides he needs to end the fight and charges energy within his body. As the light brightens the room, the observer continues to tell Sonia that she gripped the wooden sword, went to the training grounds of her own free will, and challenged the strongest person in the room just to prove she is no worse than anyone. Suddenly, to everyone's shock, Sonia copies Felix's wave stance. The crowd marvels at how she learned the same stance after just seeing it. Cecilia thinks Sonia's plan is to humiliate Felix, then let herself lose to promise a next duel and increase their chances of getting close. Both opponents charge at each other for a final move. A loud sound comes from their clash. A piece of a broken wooden sword lands on the floor. It is Sonia's wooden blade that broke. The crowd looks at Felix's left shoulder and sees a wave sword spirit, impressed that he was able to summon his life-bound spirit mid-battle. Ingrid encourages Sonia, telling her she will also be able to summon a spirit soon. Sonya tells everyone that she did not lose, but the crowd thinks she is just being stubborn. Suddenly, the tip of Felix's wooden sword breaks off as well. On Sonya's right shoulder, a wave sword spirit also appears. The crowd can't believe she learned Felix's wave stance mid-battle and summoned a spirit immediately after. The people who took years to master the sword become discouraged, realizing they are looking at a genius. Sonya looks into the crowd and sees the observer watching her. She asks if he is just a projection of her inner thoughts, a hallucination. The observer picks up the broken piece of the wooden sword from the ground and reattaches it to Sonya's sword. As he slowly disappears, he teases her to guess what he is. This angers Sonya, who begins to swear at him. Meanwhile, Ash sees from his hollow screen that his berserker sword maiden has leveled up multiple times and gained many abilities, including the wave stance and the wave sword spirit. He notices something called a one-wing sword sorcerer, and believes that the number of wings indicates more superpowers. Seeing how much his sword maiden has grown makes Ash feel that getting up at 6 a.m. to check her progress was worth it. Despite her leveling up, Ash does not feel any more powerful. He feels like he has been scammed by the game, speculating that it might be because he hasn't paid anything, as the company's games are infamous for being unplayable without spending money. The prison's computer voice then informs Ash that he may now move freely into some areas. His door opens as the computer invites him to eat at the cafeteria. Ash pulls up the Shattered Lake Prison Inmate Manual on his holoscreen to see what is going on. The manual's description of prison luxuries makes him feel like he is being pranked. It all seems too convenient, making him suspicious. He slowly steps outside his room to look around. The absence of any guards in the hall makes it even more terrifying. He runs to the end of the hall, where he finds an indoor park with inmates hanging out. Spotting a prison guard on one of the couches, Ash feels relieved, thinking he can call for help if anything happens. He believes he needs protection since he has not received any XP from his sword maiden yet. Now feeling safer, he walks around to find the cafeteria. He sees inmates watching a press conference for a politician on a large LED screen, and notices orc and goblin prisoners discussing high-level politics because of it. An inmate approaches Ash and tells him he knows he is the esteemed leader of the Four Pillars cult. He introduces himself as Igor, explaining that he recognizes Ash because his presence is saturated in their media. Igor offers his hand for a handshake and invites Ash to join their escape plan. Ash wholeheartedly accepts the offer without hesitation. Just as they are about to shake hands, a woman tells Ash that she would punch Igor in the face if she were him. Ash looks at the woman and is shocked to see that she looks and sounds exactly like his sword maiden. He listens to her and gets ready to punch Igor. As Ash leapt in to punch his fellow prisoner, the chip in his neck suddenly flashed, saying he's prohibited from harming a citizen. Red alarms incessantly blared in his head, repeating the warning. Just then, his fist stopped inches away before it hit Igor. He couldn't move at all, and the young man mocked his feeble punch. Since he seems to be satisfied with prison life, his peer turns away and leaves him be. With this, the newcomer finally found himself able to move again. Scoffing at him, the sword maiden asks why he's so surprised. She explains how the chip detected his intentions and made his attacks ineffective. The technology is quite useful and seems to be quite practical for people. While combat and magic are restricted there are a bunch of tricks one can do. For example, using a spirit to form a contract, which is what Igor does as a succubus. By agreeing and accepting his invitation to be friends, it's like he's offering subservience. In other words, shaking his hands earlier would turn him into his slave. It's worse than his old world, where labor contracts are needed. Moving on, Ash wonders if the other people there can't see her. He can keep talking to her freely, but would look like a lunatic who speaks to himself. Not minding it, he keeps talking and confirms that she's actually the sword maiden. She gets the doubt, as she would have questioned his identity as the observer if she didn't see him. They start to bicker about not looking like they do in their character art, but it's reasonable to think that they change clothes every now and then. Ash misunderstands the situation and tells her to help him escape, but is left in confusion as she flatly refuses to do so. Sword Maiden questions why she'd release him when the place fits useless trash like himself. In fact, he could retire early and live the life he's always dreamed of living there. The young man argues that he was framed and has to face some moon judgment. As she laughs at him, he whines and starts to label himself as her superior, but his words are cut short as she glares at him and questions what he is to her exactly. Daring him to complete his sentence, she pokes his forehead several times in an instant, and the actions are hard enough that he's forced to the couch. Putting her face close to his, she stares down at him and asks if he was about to call himself his master. No longer smiling, he wonders if that's so wrong of him to do. She's just a virtual character, and without him, the player, she'll cease to exist. The way he puts things turns her expression even darker, and he has no choice but to grit his teeth and accept it. Now, raising his voice, Ash says he isn't her master, but insists that he isn't her servant either. If she can't treat him like an equal, then she might as well go back into her game as Data. Sword Maiden stares at him for a while, and her curt frown turns into a knowing smirk. She turns away, confirming that she's just a virtual character born from his thoughts. However, he must remember what he said about him never becoming her master. The young man is told to swear, and will be cursed to lose his face for a decade if he lies. Without a hint of hesitation in his face, he does as told and promises. With a satisfied smile, she calls on him to talk while walking. Instead of escaping, they'll be having breakfast since he's so hungry. That said, she can't really help him even if she wanted to. Invisible, untouchable, and unable to affect the physical world, how could she help him escape? The reason she's there right now is because of their relationship as Sword Maiden and Observer. It was finally time to transfer the experience points she got from being forced to train so much. Delighted, he opens his arms to accept it all. She scolds him again for foolishly thinking that it's so easy to gain what she worked for. Wondering how he's supposed to get it, Ash is told to fight people and let the experience transmit into his body naturally. Eagerly looking around, he finds a target to accost. Lang has buff, tattooed, scarred, and generally looks like he's killed hundreds. Basically begging for it, the young prisoner knocks the man's glass of milk over, spilling it all over his head, and uncaringly apologizes. Even though he started it, the demonic energy makes him tremble in fear. But to his surprise, the rugged man cutely told him to be careful and try the cafeteria's milk. Slack-jawed in shock, Ash does as told and gets his lunch tray. Sitting on the table with the meal in front of him, he hears a loud and insulting laugh. Sword Maiden cackled, unable to help her reaction from the ridiculous situation. Because of the chips in their necks, any form of aggression is prohibited, even those on purpose. Any effort to disobey or take it out will have a heart-stopping shock sent to their body. He'll have to find a way to partake in battle, without relying on her like his mother. Playing along, he acts like a toddler asking her for milk, but the death-seeking action has him sent flying away. He lightly bumps into Lang from earlier, and this encounter gives him the chance to get acquainted and ask around directly. Misunderstanding his friendliness, the muscular man says he already has a boyfriend. Ash tries to clarify, but the confusion only grows. While he's surely a nice person, the prisoner is loyal to his partner and can't so doubt. Moving on, they get to the boy's question. Although they still haven't gotten past the flirting error, Ash has no choice but to cut him off and ask about ways to fight in the prison. Lang's expression changes, and he says he's come to the right person if he wants to use his muscles. He's a member of the Deathmatch Society, which has the permission to temporarily lift the chip's restrictions. Surprised, Ash wonders if the warden really allows them to fight to the death. Someone might die, but that won't make the fighter a murderer. Beside the arena was the medical room, where people can be brought back if saved within 5 minutes. Even if someone actually dies, the prison doesn't care. In the middle of his explanation, Lang suddenly recognizes the boy as the leader of the Pillar's cult. He gets sidetracked again, sharing that he's quite interested in the cult. Back to the topic, he says it's understandable that he's eager to join the society, as the 15th is close. Since the newbie looked completely clueless, the veteran explains the significance of the date. Everyone in the prison is on death row, and they're given a great life inside, because the only thing waiting for them in the end is absolute death. Ash already expected it, but having it confirmed makes his body freeze. The Moon Judgment is a show on the 1st and 15th of the month, and generates huge broadcast revenue. In other words, watching executions was popular in this world. He falls to his knees in disbelief, but brightens up as he's told that there's a way to escape the event. All prisoners start with 50 points, which drop by 10 each month. If one hits 0, they don't get punished. But the lower one's point count is, the closer they are to participating in the judgment. This is basically what determines their participation. There are many ways to earn points, and the easiest is to create value. Based on their own skills and capabilities, they can find something to offer to the prison. That said, most of the prisoners are just killers, with no special talent to leverage. The deathmatch works on a system that bets points where the winner takes all. Before going on stage, most of them have to wear some kind of makeup. As he says this, Lang licks his milk glass, and confirms that the boy still wants to join the society after what he heard. With this, he's led to the arena to see the space. The first match of the day requires a bet of 1 point, and this number increases with each match. It's a slow crawl at first, but the stakes add up. Because of that, people use the earlier fights to size others up, understand their weaknesses. With the judgment coming soon, the place was sure to be busy. While walking in the dark, he asks Ash if he wants to buy some meat. Meat often falls off the arena, and it's one way to spend their contribution points. Giving a devious smile, they enter the hall, where Lang is greeted and addressed as the gourmet. Noticing the boy with him, they poke fun and ask if he's the new boyfriend, but the jab at his relationship makes the man threaten them with punishment. It works and the troublesome people back off, which allows Ash to be introduced formally. He randomly picked a person to mess with, but realized that Lang must be notorious there. There was an ongoing fight between Tiger and Rooter. In the middle of the arena, an old man was weathering the attacks of a large orc. The orc hadn't fought in a while, and made the mistake of picking the old man. Since Tiger bet higher, there was no option but to end the match sooner or later. Rooter's tired body is punched around, even causing him to lose a tusk. The human wins his arms up and unleashes a deadly barrage of punches at his opponent's face. Although the winner was obvious, the match still wouldn't end yet. The air barrier hasn't been lifted, meaning the fight goes. It'll only stop when one dies or is rendered completely unconscious. In an arena without surrender, one has to keep overwhelming and crushing their opponent. Countless fools have overestimated their skills and died to an opponent hungry for points. After all, the point of the death match is to transfer points to someone more deserving. Speaking of points, Ash notices that the bets of the current fighters aren't equal. This is normal, as by the rules, prisoners have to bet slightly more than they did in their previous match. Tiger has fought 34 times before, which is why he bet 35 now. On the other hand, Rooter has fought 10 times, but only has 5 points left to his name. Unfortunately, he always goes up against opponents he can't beat. As they're speaking, the barrier dispels and the orc's body falls over. With the match over, the medical staff immediately comes out the door and drags the body to the infirmary for treatment. Tiger walks back, feigning weakness after obviously hustling his opponent. Even Sword Maiden has to acknowledge the old man's strength, asking why he's so strong. Others explain that mana is still restricted in the arena, but physical attacks are allowed. Most sorcerers in their world are not much different from normal people, if their mana is sealed. However, a select few are called body sorcerers, who refine their physical body and technique. Taking it a step further, there's a type that alters their body to a point where enhancements don't fade. Tiger is an example of this type, and he's called a masochist sorcerer. Ash is told to get in the arena already, since he's already there anyway. The Sword Maiden tells him to pick someone who fights with fists, and advises him to do the same. After all, he's probably too weak to hold a weapon long enough. He obediently turns and asks someone if he can find a bare-handed opponent. The mysterious figure is delighted, as he's just the type of person he's searching for. Ash honestly admits that he's only betting 1 point, so he won't get much out of preying on him. Fortunately, the prisoner doesn't mind, and says he'll even give him some points of his own. Just then, Igor steps into the light, claiming to have fists as weak as his. Getting ready for his match, the audience words makes Ash realize that it won't be an easy fight. Igor insists that it should be a fair fight, especially since he's the leader of the Four Pillars cult. Based on the cheers, it seems like this opponent isn't the type to fight straightforwardly. He gets hopeful, remembering Sword Maiden's advice about not agreeing to anything he offers. However, the Sword Maiden insultingly laughs at his empty ambition. He goes on about not accepting anything, but there he was, willingly stepping into the ring following Igor's challenge. Realizing that he foolishly agreed to a match, he trembles as he walks forward. He doesn't know why, but he was immediately convinced that fighting was the only option. Falling into the succubus trap, the thought of saying no didn't even exist in his head. The exact moment he was beguiled enters his head. Sword Maiden repeats that he shouldn't carelessly respond to anyone's invitation. He's the final observer, and as such, he should reject everything that comes his way with a flat no. To him, the only way up is to seize his destiny with his own power, like a demon lord. Ash turns away, ironically rejecting her as she advised. Just like that, the arena barrier activates and the battle starts. The chip's limiter comes undone, and it's like a shackle comes undone. Igor doesn't waste time and dashed with his fists clenched. The young man instinctively puts his hands up to guard, but this was expected, and the veteran sweeps across his legs. Falling on his face, Ash rolls over and tries to regain his balance, but finds his opponent right beside him. A strong punch is driven into his unguarded gut, and the impact makes him vomit all over the floor. However, Igor was far from done, and smiles as he tells his opponent to grit his teeth. The newbie does as told, already tearing up from the pain. Another punch comes, this time to the side of his head. The poor young man stumbles around, losing his balance and barely clinging to his consciousness. As soon as his body presses against the barrier, Igor continues to unleash a barrage of hits. Still guarding with his arms up, Ash questions when the experience transfer is going to kick in. As the pain piles on, he calls to the Sword Maiden, basically begging her to take over. She just nonchalantly tells him to fight back. As the experience transfers faster, the more he gets beaten. Sword Maiden acts like she doesn't care, but looks at him with observant eyes. He looks pathetic, but he's still pushing himself to the limit and refusing to give up. In fact, she can't help but feel that, even without the sorcerer manual, he's strong at the very core. As she expected, he really is the final observer. Driven by his grit as a corporate slave, Ash sets his eyes on a counterattack. He grits his teeth and pushes his fist forward, but the soft and flimsy punch is easily dodged. Finding it cute, Igor hits his face with barely any effort. This exchange goes on for a few sequences, and the crowd cheers upon seeing his signature hits, where the enemy naturally crashes into his fists. Tiger and Lang have to acknowledge his strength, but vaguely dodge the question of who would win. At this point, Ash was beaten like a bruised fruit. Igor asks if he knows how he's won all his matches, despite being physically weak. It's true that nothing about him was particularly special. They're both weaklings, but the difference is that people like the young man are livestock. Meanwhile, Igor is a master that skins and butchers them. Races with stronger bodies have all fallen before him, already beaten the moment they entered the ring. Watching Ash jump in with a desperate attempt to win, he already knows what the weak boy is going to do. He reads his moves like an open book and counterattacks. The boy's every thought is streaming into his mind, and as plain as day to his eyes. Like a lamb ready for roasting, all that's left to do was devour his pathetic opponents. With a confident grin, Igor dodges again and brings his elbow down to take him out. To his surprise, Ash dodges perfectly and tries to strike back. The veteran jumped away immediately, sensing the danger that was completely unexpected. It was an undeniably bad sign. Playing around wasn't an option anymore, so he has to knock him out now. Meanwhile, the crowd was getting wild and riled up, even telling the blonde veteran to bring something to cut his enemies up next time. That said, Lang notes that it won't be as easy as they expect. Looking back towards the arena, they notice that Igor, who landed every punch earlier, was now missing more and more hits. There was finally a show, and some think Ash was pretending to be weak all along. Tiger refutes it, saying the boy really was weak just moments ago. His body hasn't been tempered by real combat, and Lang knows this as the one who brought him. In just a few minutes, he's already developed sharp combat instincts. The wrong person, at the wrong place, awakening the wrong talent. It was a shame to say the least. For the first time since they started, the cult leader was pushing the beauty beast on defense. Sword Maiden smiles, knowing it was over. Every era has its own theme, and in this era, people don't conquer new lands anymore. Instead, the theme in this age was sophisticated domination. In a world where class is set from birth, psyche sorcerers are basically apex predators. Even ruling clans fear them, and knowledge of their power is hidden from lower classes. However, Igor met the perfect conditions by luck, and taught himself to become a psyche sorcerer. On top of that, he already possessed the base magic spirit, contract, and made his word the law. As long as certain conditions are met, his ability would be unstoppable. He will be a king wherever there are rules, and prison is no exception. With this power, he's dominated all those around him, and even after losing to him in a deathmatch, they'll accept another battle until their points run dry. But now, the young man in front of him has changed. From a silent and docile animal waiting to be slaughtered, he changed into a louder animal, still waiting to be slaughtered. With a smile, Igor admits that he did underestimate him. His learning speed gives him the potential to be more, but his sheer physical strength is trash. After this match, he has no intention of fighting with him again, and Ash can't challenge him either. Knowing the rules and using them to dominate is what real power is. Such is the difference between the dominator and the dominated. Not caring for his words, Ash tells him not to block his face. Igor is caught off guard by the unexpected statement, and is blankly told that his face is perfect to look at for a long time. This single thought consumes his mind, and since it was the first time he's ever received such genuine praise, he unconsciously lowered his hands. A hard punch lands right on his chin. He fell flat to the floor and, just like that, the match was over. Ash is declared the winner, but with the adrenaline gone from his body, exhaustion takes over and he also falls. His first taste of fighting was painful and unbearable. He finally understands the point of the death match, which turns prisoners into soulless sources of entertainment for the rich. They're all trapped, and doomed to die either to the judgment or the death match. His rational self suddenly popped up, saying it makes sense for people who broke the law. If he wasn't there himself, he'd probably be clapping for the very system he's stuck in. While conversing with himself, he realizes that the pain in his body is gone. Just then, a voice tells him to go chase dinner time, if he's awake and healed up. Ash opens his eyes, but they bulge out in shock as the person before him was wearing the outfit of a plague doctor. The doctor is worried because of his reaction, but is sure that they treated him well. After ensuring that they really are just a healer, the boy asks for plastic surgery to make him handsome. It was just friendly and nonsensical chat, but to his surprise, the doctor excitedly offers a bunch of options for his desire. Terrified by the fervent reaction, Ash declines, saying he doesn't have money, but is told that they want him, not his money. An awkward silence passes because of the confession. He plays along, saying they don't know each other that well yet. The masked one clarifies that they want the boy's body to operate on. In fact, they're even willing to pay for the right to operate. They try to convince him, and list how lucky he is to have someone with amazing credentials work on him for free. That said, he's well aware that most free things come with a hefty price later on. Finally, this makes the doctor admit that their operations come with a tiny risk. It'd seem harmless to a naive person, but Ash knows the dangers of such wording. As such, he asks the healer to be specific about the risks. Medicine there is developed from spirits, and they can do anything as long as a body has moisture. The most common one used in healing is hydrotherapy, but it has a lot of flaws, including errors and regrowth. Still, that spirit can evolve with practice, and will become more efficient with time. The prison is the best place to evolve as a doctor, as there are inmates nearing death every day. Again, prisoners are further used as resources, this time to train healers. That said, treatment itself doesn't cost any contribution points, so it still isn't exploitative to the max. Ash then scolds the healer for wearing such an ominous outfit, but it actually serves as a safeguard that deters shocked patients from attacking the doctor in case of errors. While it's meant to improve patient-doctor relations, the measure indicates a high chance of operations going wrong. Getting frustrated, the young man scolds the doctor and spouts painful accusations. They're hurt by the words, but meekly explains that it wasn't their fault. Tears ran down as they tried to explain their side. Ash asks if they're aware of their biggest flaw. It's the fact that their way of speaking isn't strong, firm, or confident. Because of how insecure they sound, any side effects felt by the patient will be thrown back at them. He passionately tells the doctor to say things more confidently, even in times they can't heal the person. That's only the first step, and they still have to call bad patients out for not taking care of themselves. Since no one is perfect, they're sure to find a bad angle to put the patient down. As long as these two are done, authority can be established, and they can present their treatment as a privilege. This ideal is something based on his years of experience. Moving forward, there's only one thing to do. No matter what surgery is done, the doctor has to insist that they already did their very best. Encouraged, they start screaming and repeating this idea. Ash is satisfied, and certain they'll pick the rest up on their own. It's a bad technique in corporations, but it might help his healer's career. Just then, the doctor called out, asking if he really doesn't want plastic surgery, and even adding that it's rude to go around with such a face. Ash isn't sure if he's meant to feel proud, as his student was already applying his lesson. He turns away and smiles, insisting that his face likely isn't as bad as the masked one's. Frustrated, they argue and state that they aren't ugly, prompting curiosity over their looks. For a moment, it felt like they were going to remove their mask, but they just suddenly handed Ash a tag with the number 222. He's told to keep it on him at all times, so everyone knows who his doctor is. Again, this makes the young man question the doctor's identity, but they avoid the question and just repeat the instruction to bring the tag everywhere. With this, the patient is pushed away and told to get dinner before the cafeteria closes. Before completely walking away, Ash turns back and asks the healer to cut him an apple the next time he comes there. Just like that, they agree to grab a meal together soon. Actually, this is a trick meant to get close to others, by asking for small and trivial favors. He used this to get extra bonuses and awards in his past life. Another doctor appeared from the curtains and asked 222 why they're still there. As the senior gets a gist of what happened, he questions if the subordinate chatted with the patient. It's against the rules, as the Human Rights Association can never know about their activities. With this, 222 runs off, reminded that they won't even be there without their supervisor. It seems the senior was establishing authority and putting them in place. It's true that they're there because of connections, and that point can always be used as criticism. They suddenly remember Ash, whose recovery is better than the others. Giddy with the thought, they will for him to be beaten up again sooner. After so much struggle, Ash thought he'd be in a safer place. but it seems nothing has changed at all. He won 45 points from the match, but still has to undergo judgment in a few days. Regardless of their points, all prisoners are required to attend their first judgment. Honestly, the odds of surviving aren't all that bad, but as the leader of the Pillar's cult, he's bound to be a main target during the event. Since the young man doesn't intend on giving his life up so easily, Lang says someone wants to fight him and asks if he'd accept the challenge. It's the real reason he was waiting for the boy in the cafeteria. The opponent is going to bet 36 points, and it's rare for such people to go against newbies. His name is Varkas, but he's never even heard of him before. Just then, Lang speaks a name, Silent. Ash cocked his head in confusion, and the veteran observed his reaction. He brushes it off, saying he just thought of someone he knew. Moving on, they discuss his new enemy's weapon, which is a plain sword. The mention of the blade makes him look at the sword maiden, albeit not in the right places. She notices him peeking, and tells him to speak his mind out loud. Ash wonders if he can touch her, in the same way she can touch him. Not having the patience to play with him, she influences his next words. He tells Lang to tell Varkas to clean his neck and wait for him tomorrow. With this, the two prisoners part ways, with Lang heading off to his boyfriend. It's odd, as he actually walks toward the deathmatch arena, not a couple's room. Taking his attention off it, Sword Maiden gestures and tells him to head to his room. After all, they'll be busy exploring a world he's never known. Despite being offended by what she's implying, he blushes and happily runs toward her. Meanwhile, in the deathmatch arena, there was a horrific scene. Lang says Ash accepted the challenge, not because of the name, but because he wants a sword fight. Varkas promises to pay him back sometime soon, but the bald prisoner says he can do that now, by explaining the sudden interest in the boy and who Silent is. The man doesn't mind telling him, but he should be prepared for the weight of knowledge. Lang continues to tear through a dead arena fighter, and says he'd rather stay away from big shots. Munching on the flesh, he says Ash looks more like an innocent boy than a leader of a cult. Varkas says anyone who steps in the prison is far removed from the word innocent. In the dark corridor, Varkas states that Ash has already accepted his deathmatch challenge. A guard reminds him to destroy the boy to the point where a two-winged healer can't save him. As long as he dies tomorrow, the elf prisoner will be free from the clutches of the prison. However, he and a child he's caring for can't stay in the city, according to Silent. Saying he has no interest in breathing the same air as that man either, he's pushed forward, as the guard treats him like a criminal again. The elf death row inmate is scolded for clinging to arrogance and acting like a noble. Meanwhile, Ash was completely unaware of this, and was discussing with the Sword Maiden. She says there are two pieces of news, with the good one being lifetime government-provided housing. The bad news is that his head might get chopped off at any time. Even someone as strong as Tiger is powerless because of the chip in his neck. Even if he escapes prison, the chip will catch him and can make him do anything it wants. Unfortunately, he can't carve it out, as it had already fused with his very bone marrow. With that in mind, he wonders if there is any way to remove it with sorcery. Smiling eerily, she says there are plenty. The one he's most likely going to get his hands on is a certain sword magic miracle. It's a defensive skill meant to purge abnormal states and can wipe the chip from his body instantly. To cast miracles, he first needs magic spirits, and he has 4 ways to obtain those. One is to resonate with the arcane world naturally, but the chip will prevent him from doing that. 2 is trading with others, but he has nothing to offer to others. 3 is killing an owner and taking the spirit forcibly, but that's obviously not an option. Last, and his only option, is to directly hunt for a wild spirit in the arcane realm. The only way in is by triggering tapping into a magi spirit and allowing his consciousness to slip in. In other words, he needs a spirit to enter the realm, but is going to the realm because he has no spirit. It's just like a fresh graduate, realizing that all entry-level jobs require 3 years of experience. As he was about to spiral down, Sword Maiden says he doesn't have to use his own spirit for this method. He turns around with hope, and she reminds him that she already has the sword spirit, allowing her to enter the realm. Since they bonded through the manual, she can take her with him without any problem. Confused, he hurriedly checks the manual if there really is such a feature. To his surprise, there really is an extra function module. He clicks on the appropriate boxes and confirms that he's ready. Nothing happens for a while, and he notices Sword Maiden sitting around with a smile. He tells her to hurry up and accept it already, so she heads out to prepare while he waits even longer. The Sword Maiden mocks him, saying he just won't understand what she has to prepare. With this, she disappears and leaves him all alone in his room. Ash plops down on his bed, completely spent from the exhausting day he had to go through. Meanwhile, in Stellaris, which has a 3-hour difference from the prison, was the girls' dorm. Sonia's real body was just getting back from training with Ingrid. Her day was crammed with advanced classes, sparring sessions, and sword magic training at night to master the wave sword magic. She's being personally trained by Professor Tello, a sword saint who might gain 4 wings soon. She offers to recommend Ingrid as well, but she wants to earn her achievements on her own. That said, Sonia wouldn't have known to turn down Felix's challenge if it wasn't for her. The professor signed her up for the Truth University tournament and will even use their facilities. This news catches Adele's attention, and she asks to be introduced to handsome students. Calling Lois, who's been stiffly silent all this time, Sonia says she'd never forget her roommates. The constant taunting makes the girl shake as she grips her book tight. It was obvious that she was nearing her limit and was about to blow up soon. To their surprise, she calms down and regains her composure after a while. Dissatisfied with the reaction, the sword maiden leaves to head to the mediation room. Her roommates are left behind, and Adele turns to Lois with a concerned gaze. She tries to console her, saying there's no need to humor an arrogant country bumpkin. However, the girl was smart enough to acknowledge her loss this time. Sonia has already climbed to a point she has to look up to, but she refuses to let this keep going and bow her head after graduation. Not knowing how to handle the situation for now, Adele backs away with a worried expression, but decides to give her friend some space. Meanwhile, Sonia arrived at the mediation hall, which is specifically meant for students exploring the arcane realm. With her identity and access verified, she's instructed to walk directly into the wall. She does as told and passes through without a problem. Inside the building, a miracle accelerates the thoughts of all those inside. The observer has actually been with her all this time. Since he's still with her late at night, he tries to charge her for overtime pay, but since she's broke, he makes her pay by turning the girl into his employee. She hasn't graduated from the academy yet, so as an intern, she'll receive no pay. That said, he's obviously put so much effort into training her, with the intention of reaping more. Suddenly taking a serious tone, he says all she needs to do is stay alive. He laughs it off as a joke, and admits that he's currently too weak to enter the arcane realm alone. As such, he needs her to accompany him forward. Sonia passes through a locked door, and finds herself in a serene plain under the starry night sky. Taking a seat on the grass, she summons the sword spirit and closes her eyes. This bond allows the gates to open, and she immediately falls into the arcane world. She reaches out and calls to the observer, worried, but he assures her that he's right with her. After all, a sacred destiny links them. Finding herself on a boat, she is surprised to see the observer's material form, but he's just as surprised to see hers. The two enter the spirit realm for the first time, and are floating on the sea of knowledge. While Ash was delighted as he was wearing the clothes his character does, Sonia was going on about how the first stop for everyone in the arcane realm is that body of water. That said, she had no idea why there was a boat, as their lesson stated that people arrive bare. By this, it means there should be no such external aids at all. She's even heard that people soak in the water and have no choice but to swim. Ash then confidently explains that her soul was split in two, one part boat and another a human body. Questioned how he can prove it, he tells her to swim away from the boat, and says she won't be able to as she's bound. She does as told and comes back a bit later, refuting his claims completely. The observer's mistake makes her smirk, but his intentions become clear as she sees him staring at her soaked body. Despite arguing that it was a test, the trick earns him a punch to the head. He belittles the presence of the boat, but Sonia argues that it's a huge deal, as drowning is the most common way sorcerers die. In a sorcerer's growth, the arcane realm is the most important part, and many spend their lives exploring it. However, this endeavor causes many greedy souls to be devoured by the sea. Dying there would take 3 days to recover mentally in the real world. The soul suffers heavy trauma, and the stronger one is, the greater the damage. New sorcerers only need 3 days, silver at least 15, and gold-ranked months. Meanwhile, sanctuary and legendary sorcerers take years. If one can't explore the realm, their growth decays by 90%, so there are different approaches. Some are conservative and grow steadily. On the other hand, there are also those who risk it all to become top tier. Of course, losing would turn one into a permanent wreck. With this, it becomes immensely clear that having a boat is akin to cheating. Getting an idea, he wonders if it's related to the sorcerer's manual. Everything else is disabled, but it seems he has the power to drive the boat. A window is even kind enough to give him a beginner tutorial. However, he's interrupted as the vehicle suddenly shook. Seeing Sonia paddling with her arms, he tells her to let him handle it. She's surprised, not expecting him to actually know his way around the realm. As the observer asks for some time to read the tutorial, she sighs in disappointment, believing it's a joke. After all, even Tello had no exploration guide for it. In the arcane, they're all equally ignorant and in search of knowledge. But one thing to remember is to never stay in one place too long. When people do so, their real body thinks they actually died, which causes their heart to stop. He's surprised that she's so afraid of death, and expected her to recklessly chase thrill. Sonya really did used to be like that, back when she still had nothing to lose. Now, she's a prodigy who's guaranteed gold status in 20 years, possibly sanctuary in 40. Gold would basically turn her into nobility, while sanctuary can help her shake the world. Wanting to play it safe, she paddles toward the shallow white mist, known to be lucky. Just then, the boat sped forward and made a quick U-turn, completely following Ash's will. With a blank face, he shares that he's the one who brought the vehicle, and just learned that he can actually control it. Before she could argue any further, the mist sparkled as it touched her body. With clear eyes, she sees sword techniques in her mind. It was pure sword magic, flowing into her body as they sped forward. As long as one moves in the realm, sorcerers can automatically absorb knowledge. Moreover, it can condense into silver magic power, forming the symbol of a one-winged sorcerer's strength. A feather appeared on her back, and while she soaked up the rush of knowledge and power, Ash stared at the holographic map, like a clown passing notes. There, he sees a screen showing where they are, and parts of the realm with descriptions. Some indicate nothing valuable, while others warn of danger. Fortunately, there's also a space clearly advising them to visit. He steers the boat in that direction, and as soon as they enter the area, Sonya spots a small island hidden in the fog ahead. Her eyes opened in surprise, recognizing it as the place where the observer tested her in a dream. Misunderstanding, she thinks he must be doing this all on purpose, and labels him as a mysterious expert. She walks away as soon as they dock on the shore, and they notice the fog immediately clear up. In front of them was an armed man, saying the gun is fast beyond 7 steps. Within 7 steps, the gun is fast and accurate. He takes aim when they enter his range, completely ignoring Ash's plea to talk things out first. The gunpowder fires and he barely dodges in time to avoid a direct hit. His leg got hit by the bullet, but the damage wasn't all that bad. Taking a closer look, he notices his form and color fading, and he realizes that being hit drains soul energy from his real body. While he was still processing what was happening, Sonya sped ahead. The man took aim, ready to fire another shot at them. As he pulled the trigger with a determined shout, the Sword Maiden summons the Wave Sword magic spirit and swings her blade down. The slash cuts the bullet and knocks the enemy off balance. Before he could recover, Ash follows up and grabs his entire body to restrain his movements. With this, she's free to dash forward and thrust her blade through his soul's head. The gunman disappears in a puff of smoke, and the two sigh in relief as they win the unexpected battle. They were starting to argue, but noticed an object appearing from where the enemy was. Although he's confused, Sonya instantly knows what it is. It's a legacy island in the realm, and the book is the Gun Sorcerer's Sorcerer Manual. He's shocked, not expecting to come across another manual so easily. Various creatures, small, fast, and nimble, are all hit accurately by a boy's arrow. Running home with his father after the successful hunt, he happily carried his spoils. Just then, they see a villager's chest blasted open. In the distance was an approaching horde of monsters. Aside from their armor, one orc carried the smoking gun that killed the villager. The boy and his father drew their bows and fired to retaliate, but their weak arrows merely bounced off the enemy's metal armor. With no way to defend against them, the monsters wreaked havoc, shooting everyone in the city and completely taking over. The father manages to carry the boy far away to safety, but as soon as he felt a semblance of safety, his knees gave out and he fell to the ground lifeless. The boy watched his parent draw his last breath. Filled with anger and hatred, he put the fallen hat on, and with tears in his eyes, waited for a target. An orc gunman walked through the tall grass, but quickly died as an arrow was shot through his head. The boy then took the dead monster's firearm and started to take revenge. A few unsuspecting enemies are killed at first, but even as they came to expect his presence, the foolish monsters were no match for a trained sharpshooter, even if he was using an unfamiliar weapon. He takes them down one by one, dodging their attacks and forcing them to fall into the traps he laid out. At first, he completely eliminates the horde that attacked his village, and soon piled the corpses of many others. Years pass and he's grown older, but his mission stays the same. At one point, he finds a recruitment flyer for orc eradication units and joins their brigade. Just like that, he spends decades shooting and killing the race that took his family away. Granted a Medal of Honor, he eventually retired and sat on a rocking chair with his gun, watching over the land he fought to free. Taking a swig of his alcohol, he shoots a rabid wolf. Another drink and a human falls this time. then another, then another. After a while, he entered his home with his smoking gun and pointed the barrel at his lover. She stared at him with deep and sad eyes, but they grew in surprise as he fell to the ground, eventually succumbing to death. Ash looks at the manual's owner, while Sonia is just surprised that he finished the whole thing. On the last page was the medal he earned. From the medal, a blue spirit emerged. It's the rapid-fire spirit, able to shoot 2 shots consecutively with increased range and accuracy. His screen was explaining everything, and there was even a pop-up. As currency recharge was available, he's asked if he wants to exchange for points. His eyes glowed with excitement, realizing the potential he was holding. With the sought-after magic spirit in his hand, he suddenly became conscious, and nervously asked the sword maiden if she wants it. It's neither a general spirit, nor a sword spirit, so taking it would just waste her money. He's confused, not knowing what money has to do with it. She wonders if he's mocking her poverty, because how would he not know basic knowledge, unless he's a rich person who's never worried about feeding magic spirits. Humoring him, she explains that spirits need to be fed coins, and the amount depends on the quality of the spirit. If unfed, they'll actually starve to death and vanish. They can eat other materials, but it's extremely tedious and using currency is more convenient. Also, its mere existence consumes a sorcerer's mental energy constantly. With this, he understands that quality is much better than quantity in this regard. Spirits are divided into gun, sword, masochist, and fist factions, all with respective requirements. Those without strict requirements are called general spirits, and almost everyone can use them. A sorcerer's collection is usually made up of specialized and general ones. With all that said, she isn't interested in an outdated spirit that can't even be traded for much in school. Rapid fire emerged 100 years ago, and newer pistols fire 7 bullets in 1 second. Granted the permission to take it, he exchanges the medal, which soon fades away from his arm. He expectantly looks at his mind screen and sees that he's earned 10 points. However, it wasn't enough for draw, and the conversion will require another 1-winged spirit for a draw. Spirits hold extraordinary powers, but the price is cheap like minimum wage. He then remembers the notebook in his hands. It's a sorcerer manual, which basically summarizes the user's life like a diary. When they die, their soul automatically returns to the arcane realm as a projection, and memories of their life are condensed into a single book. It can be absorbed like a medal, and will grant a random skill from the owner. Since he took the spirit, he offers her the book, but she refuses. Such texts have a corrupting nature, and one can only read manuals that align with their worldview. If reading doesn't cause any discomfort, then it's pretty safe to absorb. Ordinary sorcerers are lucky to absorb 2 out of 10 manuals they find, but how can he do it immediately? It's possible that his worldview is tolerant, or his moral baseline is flexible. Regardless, he successfully absorbs the book and gets the counter-recon mastery skill. Just then, the ground beneath them shook. The Legacy Island sank to the sea like countless others, after finally being discovered by sorcerers. Once a legacy is taken, the island naturally returns to the depths of the sea. In the arcane, anything can happen as they encounter countless predecessors. Their own traces will remain, and centuries later, other explorers will meet the challenge they'll leave behind. She wonders if he's lived a life he'd proudly show future generations. The pair's peaceful time is interrupted as a beast emerges from the sea. They're tossed around and the boat capsizes, as the monster shoots water cannons from its gaping maw. Sonia asks him to control the boat and steer far away, but he isn't sure if he can do it while it's flipped over. Fortunately, his power still works, and they're able to escape from the dangerous waters. They reach a safe zone soon enough, and wonder if the enemy followed them. Bickering and blaming comes naturally, but they actually both decided to go to this area, after fruitlessly sailing for an hour earlier. She wonders why he can't kill the enemy earlier, but if she can't, then how would he? His argument makes her realize that he must be weaker than she expected, but she stops herself from being filled with thoughts of revenge. For some reason, he can still control her, and even Tello hasn't noticed his existence. He's undeniably powerful and significant. In the realm where all sorcerers are equal, he's someone who can see through unknown risks. As such, the final observer is a being above all others, and she can't waste their bond with revenge. She was lucky enough to be chosen by him, but if he realizes how ordinary she is, then he might throw her overboard without hesitation. That said, why would he ask such dumb questions? Sonia misunderstands and thinks he's playing weak and hiding danger beneath the facade. Proving her point, Ash asks about basic information, such as the beast they just encountered. She plays along and explains the species, which is the most common in the arcane realm. Thanks to her explanation, he's gotten a better gist of the dimension. In the arcane, killing a beast grants magic spirits from the knowledge they condensed. Also, the loot knowledge beasts drop updates with version. For example, sorcerers in reality can create a new knowledge system and summon a new magic spirit. Meanwhile, those in the arcane can directly birth those spirits after killing knowledge beasts. If the system is crazy enough, new species can spawn and expand the realm's biodiversity. In other words, those in the real world and those in the realm have equal chances of getting results. Again, comparing it to his old world, Ash says no one can retire comfortably. Because of how things are set up, sorcerers are like employees who have no choice but to keep working. He gets hyped up, confident that he can thrive in such situations, as he already did so before. Moving on, Sonia confirms that he can't see what's in the fog, and just knows how dangerous it is. She's disappointed, and says he likely can't find the golden fish either. Asked what that is, she believes that he's playing dumb again, and asking a stupid question. She puts her fake smile on, and explains that it's a creature on the sea, which carries the continent of time that two-winged sorcerers go to. It's said that the smallest scale on its body is as large as a city housing 1 million people. Despite its size, only a select few manage to encounter it, and eventually become legendary without exception. He wonders what's so special about finding it, and is told that one immediately becomes a two-winged sorcerer. It's amazing indeed. When a one-winger condenses their mana to its limit, they can no longer gain any in the sea of knowledge. To advance further, they must study and summon a two-winged spirit, which will help open the gate of truth to the continent of time, where they can continue to absorb mana and condense their second wing. The first wing is silver, and the second is golden. To open the gate of truth, one must use a spirit they summoned, meaning stealing is off the table. Finding the golden fish is basically a shortcut, but the better term is a stowaway, who smuggles themselves from a lower level to a higher one. She questions why he's asking so much when he can't find it anyway. Suddenly, he perks up, not because he found the fish or another monster, but because the screen is welcoming them to a golden area on the map. It was Adventure Island, free of dangers or trials. There, only wild spirits frolicked and played happily. Basically drooling from the abundance of choices, Sonia asks Ash what he's waiting for. It was a full buffet, and all they had to do was catch them. They spend some time running around, and while the spirits scattered around in panic, the two humans managed to catch a couple. The first was a substitute one-winged spirit, capable of creating a duplicate of a target. Second is a torrent spirit, capable of shooting high-speed water jets with kinetic impact. Ash gazed at the substitute on his palm, knowing it's one of the spirits needed to take the chip out of his neck. Seeing him, Sonia volunteers to take the torrent, saying it can sell for a lot in her university. He doesn't know why she needs money, still thinking she's a virtual character. Regardless, the two ended their first journey through the arcane realm. As they bid each other farewell, the Sword Maiden looked at him, confirming that the observer can't read her mind in that dimension. He'll be able to once they're back in reality. She didn't tell the whole truth, that while torrent is rare and valuable, the substitute spirit is worth even more. It's a general-purpose spirit, so it's already a tier higher than nice specialized spirits. There's a reason she hid this fact from him. She can't clearly see his face, but noticed that he really wanted it. So, she acted smug about getting the torrent, to help him accept the substitute without feeling bad. That way, once they're back in reality and he reads her thoughts, he'll immediately understand her little scheme. Even if it doesn't affect him much, her little gesture should increase his affection for her a bit. Sonia laughed in delight, pleased by the plan she quickly thought up. Back in the field below the stars, she called to the observer, but was met with no response whatsoever. Days passed and she continued to look for him, waiting for her plan to work. However, he doesn't show at all, and she erupts with anger as he really disappeared with the prize, after she set up the sugar-coated trap. As Sonia cursed the observer who left her hanging, she's surprised as someone greets her a good morning. It was Cecilia, noting that she seems really excited after entering the arcane for the first time. She returns the greeting of the senior, who she naturally got to know because of Felix. They're similar in the sense that they're both huntresses willing to do anything to climb higher. After the girl laid a perfect trap for her boyfriend, the talented school junior came along to attract him. It's no wonder she's so hostile towards her. To her surprise, Cecilia backed away after getting close. Seeing the girl cover her nose, Sonia burns with anger as she knows that she doesn't smell all that bad. Annoyed, she takes a petty jab, but it's so shallow and insignificant. The senior shows her an inherited spirit she found, which looks like a toddler clinging to a sheath. It was a great find, which boosts the user's strength when paired with the right spirit. One can even branch into an assassin swordsman, with lethal ability unattainable to other factions. Despite its value, she's still surprisingly set on giving it to her boyfriend as a gift. Seeing her smug expression, Sonia realizes that she must have looked the same last night. Cecilia then brings up her poor family, saying she'll be able to help them once she gets strong. Making it personal, she even supposes that her family is obstructing her potential. The Sword Maiden's eyes turn dark for a moment, but she lets it go, feigning a smile and putting up with the backhanded comments. The arrogant woman is surprised, not expecting her to smile and accept the offensive remarks so readily. However, Sonia actually has a plan to return the gloating. Saying her face is all dirty, she puts her palm out and shoots a gentle stream of clear water. Cecilia watched in shock as she washed her face and showed the torrent spirit she got from exploring the arcane last night. The newbie laughs it off, claiming to luckily encounter an adventure island, but the senior couldn't believe it at all. She was not foolish enough to believe that a first-timer would encounter the island, let alone find the water faction's most precious spirit. It's also impossible for her to have bought it, as torrents are priceless and almost never on the market. There was only one person that could have granted her such a thing. Called over, the senior smiles and joins her junior. They head to school, talking over their spirits like good friends. That said, Sonia knows Cecilia is fuming, thinking that Felix gave her the torrent on his own. At the same time, Ash woke up at 8 inches the morning, expecting to have a big breakfast. To his surprise, the cafeteria was already packed with prisoners who woke up even earlier. Sighing and reminded of even more troubles, he tries to make use of the first spirit he obtained. It's a foolish attempt, as the chip zaps and reminds him that the use of magic is prohibited. With this, he realizes that the chip is restricting him from activating the magic that he needs in order to bypass and destroy the chip. It was a dead loop again, and there was nothing for him to do. He waits in line with a glum expression, wondering where the Sword Maiden was. Finally reaching the end, he sees plates of premium seafood right before his eyes. However, his order is interrupted, as one prisoner goes first and takes 5 portions all for himself. The lady puts the contents of the plates all in one bowl, and Ash complains about the beastmen getting many more portions than them. It's always been like that, and nobody really questions it aside from him. He continues whining about how nothing will be left for him, but his mouth is suddenly shut tight and stopped from speaking. The chip says he was about to make a racially discriminatory statement, which is prohibited in prison. Walking to a table, he wants to curse out loud, but his words are stuck in his throat, and his hands freeze and tremble. He's clearly angry but can't even say anything. He wants to resist, but his body won't listen to him. Compared to this place of civilized and enforced peace, the supposedly savage death match club was actually cuter. Rushing over to the arena, he sees Lang. Even noticing that his boyfriend was smaller, he takes a seat on the bleachers, finding it much more comfortable there. Just then, he hears a familiar voice. Igor appeared, assuring him that he won't challenge him to a death match, as he isn't sure he'd win. At this point, Ash knew better than to trust his sly and tactical mind. As such, the cunning man offers to use the oldest form of human interaction. Just then, a couple of mating flies appeared with the worst timing. Igor frustratedly explains that he's talking about trading information. He must want to know why that elf, Varkas, voluntarily challenged him to a match. While it's interesting information, he doesn't know if the succubus was going to lie. Told to guess whether or not he's telling the truth, Ash declines, knowing he'll likely be tricked. Frustration starts to take over, so Igor decides to give him the information directly and let him judge its value. If he's satisfied, then he should answer his question in return. Varkas used to be a research scholar at Kaimon. Because of his elven identity, he's never attended the judgment ritual despite being in prison for 5 years. Racial equality is supposed to be one of the major cornerstones of the prison. It definitely is the first principle, but some races are just more equal than others. To understand why he challenged the cult leader, they first talk about the crime he committed. What truly enraged those who had him arrested was that he secretly raised a child. Unaccustomed to their world, Ash is confused as to why that isn't allowed. After all, how are children raised if not done personally by parents? In disbelief, Igor reminds him that socialized upbringing in foster homes is their nation's foundation. Realizing that everyone was raised by the state, the outsider starts to say something but stops. He wants to say orphans without parents, but the words won't come out, not because of the chip, but because the words for father, mother, and parents simply didn't exist in his mind's language. What world did he enter? That upbringing is socialized and chips and necks control people. Breathing it all in for now, he questions his connection to Varkas and his child. The elf almost never challenges, but can live comfortably with the points of the challengers he defeated. This time, he stepped forward on his own, and the only possible reason is the child. There's only one key person who connects them, and his name is Silent. Ash has heard the name a few times, but still had no idea who he is, and why Igor was suddenly poking his cheek. The man in question is a history professor in the university and president of an elven association. He's likely after members of the Ancient Relic Research Society, where the cult leader currently stood as the president. There must be something bigger. Connecting the dots, Ash realizes that the professor must be the one backing his leadership of the Four Pillars. With all the information laid out, it was time for Igor's question. He asks how the young man tricked him with his inner voice. In the ring, he's able to hear his enemy's inner thoughts, which allows him to always win. To be more precise, he can hear the whispers of their souls through surging emotions. It's the first Ash has heard of it, and calls him a cheater for using such tactics. Regardless, this makes Igor question how he managed to punch him in the face. The boy blankly states that wanting to hit him and thinking he looks nice aren't contradictory. However, if he truly wanted to hit him, he should have sensed such thoughts as well. Ash continues to be nonchalant, saying his mind must have wandered off in the middle of it all. He smiles, admitting that he truly looks good in his eyes. The punch after that thought was because he suddenly got his senses back after spacing out. It was a ridiculous explanation, as someone like the cult leader would never be so silly. As the succubus starts to lose his patience, even told that his powers must be limited, he touches the young man's face. He can tell if someone is lying by judging the change in temperature of their face. Regardless of what he says, Igor should be able to tell if he's lying or not. With this, Ash says he's lying right now. The statement makes the human lie detector think and malfunction, faced with an endless paradox often found in job interviews. Just then, he hears people talking about the elf lord. A couple of orcs come close to Varkas, sarcastically offering to be his servant despite being a low race. Just then, the elf bowed and thanked them for their concern. However, he's not one to take things lying down, and throws the sarcasm right back at them. This earns a strong reaction from the orcs, but they're unable to spout insults at him, as the chips seal their mouths shut upon detecting hostile words. Intelligent enough to work around the system and use docile insults, Varkas triggers everyone one by one, and causes their mouths to all be forced shut. Ash watched, impressed as the elf completely outwitted all the dumb prisoners, and dominated the war with his poisonous tongue. One orc lets his stupidity take over, and actually tries to kick him down. As expected, the chip forces him to fall. With all that settled and done with, Varkas looks up at Ash, and asks to start their match if there aren't any problems. After a while, the two stood in the middle of the arena as planned, and were given swords to fight with. The young man looked at the bleachers, seeking the sword maiden, but he was as alone as he had been for a while. Intrigued and surprisingly worried, Igor tells him that Varkas is much stronger than him, and can't be beaten with mere tricks. The tips and advice keep raining down from above, but the elf cuts through their words, calling them maggots and flies that keep buzzing senselessly. Even if they do manage to become butterflies, they're nothing of worth inside the cesspit of prison. Silently, he apologizes to Ash. The young man is shocked as a blade cuts through his shoulder in an instant. It was extremely fast and he struggled to keep up, but he has to close the distance if he wants to live. He swings his blade, believing it was an opening he had to take advantage of. However, Varkas skillfully spun his blade down to block. Barely breaking a sweat, he asks the boy if he's learned any swordsmanship at all, and elbows him right in the face. Ash was falling to the floor, and he saw the tip of the blade coming at him. He manages to roll away, and the steel is driven into the arena floor. Their weapons aren't even sharpened, but it somehow broke through the stone floor. Varkas was using a spirit, which he says is normal for a sorcerer to do in battle. Something just can't be locked away, even if feet and hands are bound against one's will. If their limbs are tied, they must simply grow wings and fly. His slash sends a huge wave that cuts right across the floor. It was an elven sword miracle, mountain-splitting earth slicer. The audience is shocked, and in disbelief that he was actually using magic and spirits. However, using spell spirits and using miracles is different, as a miracle is brought by several spirits. Igor has never once succeeded in casting a miracle in prison. With that, he's sure that Ash was done for, and won't even have a corpse after the match. As they start to find it a pity, the onlookers notice that the young man was still holding on to life. Even if a miracle's power has been reduced to a fraction, there's no way for him to survive it. Surely, it should be able to kill a person who's barely able to hold his weapon steady. The look in Ash's eyes had completely changed, and he thinks he can read the sword's path now. His gaze makes Igor and Lang shudder, and they're reminded of the Four Pillars cult's power.